I have another one of these box sets, and this time it's a couple of Dizzy games for the Spectrum, the ZX Spectrum. And I'm going to do a video of Magicland Dizzy. And the thing is, when this box set was released, I think it was actually before Magicland Dizzy was released as a separate game. Which sounds odd, but I think they just did it to get more sales. They held back on the release of this game just a little bit, so people would rush out to buy this just for this game, which is a little bit cheeky. Right, so inside you get 2 cassettes. Now I always thought it was a little bit strange that they have 2 cassettes, but 4 of the games are on the same cassette, and just the new game, or what was the new game at the time, Magicland Dizzy, was on its own cassette. But I do have a bit of a theory about that. So I think because this was a new game, they were making these cassettes as a separate release, probably in the same production run. So you'd have a copy like this, and they'd just make lots and lots of cassettes, and they would just put some in here and some in the box set, which makes sense to me anyway. There should be more characters than this. There's definitely more characters in the Dizzy games than this. Alright, so here's my Spectrum, my 128K ZX Spectrum, and I've got my little interface plugged in so I can use a joystick. And of course, to load up cassette games you need a cassette player, so I've got a little Philips Walkman thingy here. So this is the ZX Spectrum startup screen, and you've got a few options here including tape loader. Of course I'm not going to show the whole loading process, but I do think when I make my videos I like to show off that it is an authentic video. I'm playing this game on real hardware and it's a real copy that I really own, and I usually know how to really play the game as well. So I've timed this, and it will take about 38 seconds for it to load up this loading screen. But this is just the picture that you look at whilst the game's loading. So if they didn't have this, it would take about 38 seconds less to load. And it gets discarded once the game's finished loading because it's kind of using up memory, isn't it? But anyway, I've skipped to the main game. I do quite like the music in this game. I'm not really sure if it's just because it's something that I played as a child, so I have a bit of an affinity for this sort of music. But the music from Spectrum games or Amstrad CPC games, I never usually have a problem with them. Sometimes I don't really like Commodore 64 music because that's another thing that I didn't really play as a child. Perhaps it's just something you develop a liking to because that's what you experience as a child. So you can see here, this is the Yoke Folk, and now they have so many characters that they can barely fit on the screen. And that evil looking sod up in the top corner is the evil wizard Zax. I think he is supposed to be Dizzy's arch enemy, but he only appears in a few games. Don't go this way yet, you can't get past them ghosts that kind of look like slices of bread. It's a little bit odd that the background music in Spectrum games it's always quieter than the sound effects, if the sound effects are played on the beeper. Let's go and speak to this guy. So in this game you have to rescue your friends. So you have to solve a puzzle to rescue them, and you'll come across them in different places in the game. And then once you've done that, then you can escape yourself. And you've got this tricky part here where you have to get the timing right. And you'll probably make it across that water quite a few different times during your playthrough, but you do have to get the timing right. Apparently this guy's Prince Charming, just sitting there next to a diamond. I hope you don't mind if I take your diamond, because I'll need that for later. Now this was a little bit lost on me at the time, being so young when I played it originally, but there's a lot of references in this game. I mean, it is pretty obvious that things like this Eat Me cake are from Alice in Wonderland. And you've got Prince Charming. Oh yeah, I don't need that, do I? And you've got Excalibur, the famous sword. And these are not just there, these are parts of the puzzle. And that's one of your friends. This is probably a reference to something as well. Is that a reference to the Billy Goat's Gruff? Don't talk to him too much or he'll kick you to death. Right, well that's as far left as I can go. Should we just take a minute to listen to the music? And then you can decide whether you think it's catchy or not. Yeah, you can just jump out this window here, so you don't need to deal with that shark every time you cross. It's been a long time since I played any of these Dizzy games for the first time, but I think part of the fun was discovering new screens, because sometimes there was the odd cloud that looked slightly out of reach. But then when you jumped on top of it, it led you to a new couple of screens. For me as a child playing it, it was a little bit more than just a puzzle to solve, you know. I loved controlling these characters in their games, in their little worlds, and playing through it. So a little bit of that is kind of lost if you're familiar with it, which is a bit of a shame, but that's sort of what happens when you play old games that you've played before. It's never going to be the same experience as it was the first time, you know. Some people could go 20 years without playing a game and completely forget all about it, which is great, but I never really stopped playing any of these games for a long time, because I've kept all of my old consoles and computers, and I do get them all out every now and then, and of course now I do videos of them as well. You do get a different perspective when you get older. And I do have a new appreciation for these games, really, because I think the Dizzy games are a lot more accessible than a lot of the other games that are quite like this. And there's a lot of them that suffer from the same problem, where they'll have loads and loads of enemies to avoid all the time, and it's really hard to stop them sapping all your energy away. And it's almost like a lazy design choice where it will just create enemies and then they have a kind of like a movement where they just bounce around the screen, if you know what I mean. And with these games, the enemy placement is actually well thought out, as well as the design of the screens and everything like that. So I think you really should appreciate that the Dizzy games do have a kind of extra level of care taken in their design. So I've got past the ghosts, and I'm over this side here. Oh yeah, you can fill up the bucket. But that is a volcano, and that is very hot water, as you can tell by it being red. So don't jump in there. That's as far as I can get that way. But that isn't the whole game. I haven't seen all the screens yet. There is a way to get past that troll, but I need to get the right objects. And I need to get this lady her cat back, wherever it is. Goblino. That's probably a reference to something. I mean, all that sort of stuff was lost on me as a kid. When I first played this game, I don't know, what was I, 6 years old or something? So references like that weird henge screen, no idea what that's about. But there's things like the Pied Piper. I think you meet the devil as well at some point. Alright, so what am I doing now? Oh right, yeah, I picked up the frog, who is Dizzy's sister, Dora. All of Dizzy's friends have had spells cast on them, so Dora has been turned into a frog. She always looks a bit weird here, but I think that's because the puff of smoke graphics have paused when the text box comes up. And Prince Charming takes her away to have a nice chat. And the adventure continues. Here we are inside the Ice Palace. There's a couple of nice pictures there. Oh yeah, so that woman there, I think they call her Zach's mother-in-law or something. But she's a witch. No, she's not. She's a vampire. And you need the cross to get her to move out the way. Luckily I knew about that, so I've got that already. And this room appears to be a dead end. And I remembered you could pick up that torch. Now I reckon that's the sort of puzzle that somebody would get stuck on for a really long time, because why would you ever think to try to pick up one of them torches? And here we have a blown up daisy. Right, I've got the two items that can either make her bigger or smaller. So just make sure I give her the right one. Oh god, I think she's drunk. Oh, well, good. Because actually if you give her the wrong item, she gets even bigger and she squishes you and you lose a life. Now, I can't remember if you need that torch for anything. You must need the torch for something, but I'm trying to think of what you'd need it for. Alright. Oh yeah, so there's a sneaky little way to get up here. Which, again, I think people would get stuck on that, wouldn't they? Because you wouldn't expect that to be a platform you could pass through. But apparently I worked it out when I was young. And the guy that used to own this castle has put up lots of pictures of himself, looking a bit miserable. There's another one there. He's facing the other way. That's not how you're supposed to solve that puzzle. I think it's got something to do with the Excalibur sword. What I'll do is that I'll go up here, because at the top of this tower is where Zax is, so you get to see what he looks like. Oh, there he is. Look at that, he's a bit bigger than Dizzy is. He's not really safe to hang around for too long. Right, so what to do next? I've still got quite a few of my friends to rescue. I think once you've rescued everybody, you can get over that volcano on the far right, and it takes you to the devil, and I think he gives you an object that lets you kill Zax, but that doesn't really matter because I died and it's game over. And that's a nice long look at Magicland Dizzy, and it was definitely one of my favourites when I was young, even if the music does get a little bit annoying after a while. So there you have it. Thank you for watching.